Welcome to our explainer on the wild 400-year history of New York City. Whether you've walked its streets 100 times or just know it from the movies, you're about to dive into a truly epic story. It's a tale of constant reinvention, devastating lows, and this undeniable, almost stubborn instinct for survival. To kick things off, we really gotta ask a fundamental question. How exactly did a tiny, struggling settlement on the edge of the known world become the absolute global powerhouse we know today? I mean, it wasn't a straight path, and it definitely wasn't easy. We're going to map this out in 6 phases. We'll start with its roots, revolution, and republic, then move into industrialization in the Gilded Age, explore the world wars and the Depression, navigate the civil rights era and urban crisis, look at its rebirth in the new century, and finally celebrate its status as the cultural capital.
All right, Phase 1, Roots, Revolution, and Republic, from indigenous lands to the first capital.
Way before the skyscrapers, this region was home to indigenous peoples, notably the Haudenosaunee and the Lenape, dating all the way back to 7000 BC. Fast forward a bit to 1624, and the Dutch set up New Amsterdam. It was this modest little fur trading post that quickly grew into a bustling port. Now the English, saying its massive strategic value, swept in and took control in 1664, renaming the whole thing New York. Just over a century later, the city became ground zero for the American Revolution. In 1776, a massive British armada arrived, sparking the Battle of Brooklyn. George Washington literally had to escape with his army under the cover of night. The city suffered under British occupation for the rest of the war, but ultimately emerged as the very first independent capital of the United States.
Jumping into the 19th century with Phase 2, industrialization and the Gilded Age, a gilt monster, sordid and splendid.
Driven by massive waves of immigration, first from places like Ireland and Germany, and later Eastern Europe and Italy, the city's population just exploded. By 1890, we're talking about 4 million people. To put that into perspective, that was twice the size of Chicago at the time. The novelist Henry James famously described the city during this era as unimaginable, calling it a gilt monster, sordid and splendid. It truly became the manufacturing heartbeat of the United States, churning out everything from locomotives to matches.
But the Gilded Age was completely defined by these stark, overlapping dualities. On one hand, you had unimaginable, elite wealth funding the earliest skyscrapers and these lavish mansions, projecting just immense commercial power. But on the other side, sometimes literally just down the street, you had squalid tenement slums. These were basically open-air slums, overcrowded, rampant with disease, where immigrants were subjected to brutal, dangerous working conditions. It was a city of titanic ambitions for sure, but also a city of deep chaos and severe social inequality.
Moving right along to Phase 3, World Wars and Depression, from soup lines to the arsenal of democracy.
The 20th century really pushed the city to the absolute brink. The Great Depression hit, and those gilded streets turned into shantytowns, with hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers standing in soup lines. But then, World War II changed everything. It totally transformed the city's industry. The crucial takeaway here is the staggering number, over $38 billion. That's billion with a B. That is the value of the military contracts New York City secured during the war. It turned into an unmatched production powerhouse. The port handled 90,000 troops a month, and the Brooklyn Navy Yard became this massive hub for building aircraft carriers. New York literally produced more than half of the entire nation's industrial output during this era. Incredible, right?
Next up, Phase 4, Civil Rights and Urban Crisis, the Blessed Calamity.
Following that post-war boom, the 1960s and 70s brought some really severe social and economic reality checks. The city became a major battleground for the civil rights movement, actively fighting legal and educational segregation. But economically, the city was in a total freefall. The 1970s saw a mind-blowing population drop of 820,000 people. Think about that for a second. That is the equivalent of an entire major city just vanishing. This was driven by the loss of manufacturing jobs, suburban white flight, and a sharp rise in crime. The Bronx famously burned, and the subways basically became the ultimate symbol of urban decay.
With infrastructure literally crumbling, abandoned subway lines, massive blackouts, and a government that was virtually bankrupt, many people thought the city was just dying. Planners and politicians kind of accepted this prevailing view that New York was on an irreversible downward slide. People were sincerely wondering, could the city actually survive its darkest decade? Which brings us to Phase 5, Rebirth in the New Century, Gentrification, Resilience, and New Challenges.
Against all the odds, New York reinvented itself yet again. It managed to rebound from the near ruin of the 70s, pulling people and capital right back in. And then, of course, it had to survive the unimaginable devastation of 9/11. The accounts from that time capture the profound, stubborn resilience of New Yorkers. Despite the severe grief and that literal gaping hole in the skyline, the city's spirit remained totally vigilant. They rebuilt, and nothing highlights that quite like the new One World Trade Center, rising to exactly 1,776 feet.
Okay, but here's the catch. This modern rebirth brought deep, systemic issues with it. While the city got much safer and overall wealth absolutely skyrocketed, gentrification took a really heavy toll. Today, an astonishing 53% of renter households are severely rent-burdened. That means they're spending more than 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. Sadly, a lot of the working class and marginalized residents who actually preserved the city's culture during its darkest days found themselves completely priced out of their own neighborhoods.
Finally, let's talk about the city's soul in Phase 6, the cultural capital, arts, entertainment, and culinary icons.
Despite these immense cyclical crises, New York endures as the cultural capital of the world. Its cultural exports are just unparalleled. I mean, it's the global home of Broadway theater. It ignited the Harlem Renaissance, which completely rewired American literature and art. The city played a massive role in the global spread of jazz in the 1940s, and it was the actual birthplace of abstract expressionism in the 1950s. Through every single disaster, from the Depression to the 1970s bankruptcy, the city's artistic engine never stopped. It only grew stronger.
And look, we absolutely cannot talk about New York without talking about the food. The city's incredibly rich immigrant history gave birth to these iconic, world-renowned culinary staples. You've got the authentic New York bagel, hand-rolled, boiled, baked, with that perfectly chewy interior, a total gift from Eastern European Jewish immigrants. And then there's the New York-style pizza. Those massive 18 to 26-inch pies with that thin, crispy crust you literally have to fold in half to eat. These aren't just foods, right? They are the true flavor of the Big Apple, totally symbolic of a city built by millions of hands from all over the globe.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. New York is a city that literally never stops sleeping, surviving, or changing. It has burned down, gone totally broke, and been attacked, yet it always rises. As the city navigates the extreme wealth and intense affordability crises of the 21st century, what will rise from the ashes next? Thanks for joining me on this journey, and keep questioning the world around you.